Hi guys, today I'm here with another classics book haul. I did one right at the start of the year and I think I'm going to do them kind of seasonally, but I'm not going to stick to any certain schedule. But I really enjoy making classics book hauls. I find them a really good record to see what I've bought, because now that I read a lot of classics, I tend to buy a lot more classics because I feel like I don't own them to read, if that makes sense. And you can go and watch my how to read classics on a budget video if you're interested to see how I buy classics and how I read lots of them but don't spend lots and lots and lots of money if you'd like to. So today's haul is mostly consisting of modern classics and lots of translated classics. I'm really interested to read classics from all around the world, from different cultures, and although lots of these are still Western classics, I am interested in the future and towards the end of the year of reading non-Western classics as well. So I'm really interested to know your recommendations if you've got any non-Western classics, maybe from a country that you are from or one that you've read that you think I would enjoy, because I'm trying to broaden my horizons a little bit and try not to stick to Victorian England classics. So I'm going to dive straight into it and show you what I've got recently. The first books I want to show you are part of Penguin's new set. Just like they did their Little Black Classics, they now have these beautiful Penguin moderns, which I'm trying to make my way through. I've read the first one, which is Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from Birmingham jail, which was incredible, and I'll be talking about that in my wrap-up towards the end of the month. But I really loved that, and I'm really excited to explore the whole collection and find authors who are new to me and find stories that are new to me too. I'm particularly excited to read Daphne Du Maurier because I read Rebecca and loved that. Hers is called The Breakthrough. There's also Anais Nin, who I want to read more from, Dorothy Parker, so many amazing authors, and I think it's a great collection. And if you're looking to get into modern classics and don't really know where to start, I think that this is a great way. And I found this for about £30. I think it was originally about 60, and each one, there are 50 of them in total, are £1 each. And I've seen them around in bookshops and think they're a great way to get into classics, so I'd really recommend these, and I'm looking forward to talking about them more on my channel once I've read more of them. Then on to the classics in translation that I've bought, and I've kind of stuck to a few different countries, and the first one is Norway. I love Norway. If you don't know, I'm obsessed with a programme called Skam, which is set in a Norwegian high school, and NRK, who are kind of like the BBC in Norway, also have Blank, and I think it's just such an amazing way of telling stories, and I'm kind of obsessed with learning Norwegian and finding out more about the Norwegian culture now ever since I watched that. So I bought some Norwegian classics and I'm really excited about this. The first one is Kristin Lavransdatter by Sigrid Undset, and this is set in medieval Norway, but she was born in 1882 and she's got a really interesting life. So she was originally born in Denmark, and then when she was 2 she moved to Oslo, and she was a refugee and she went to New York during the Nazi occupation of Norway, and then for the last few years of her life she moved back to Norway. I'm so interested to hear more about her. I've never heard of her before. I came across this book by chance, but I'm so excited to read it. And it says on the back that she recreates the historical backdrop in vivid detail, immersing readers in the day-to-day life, social conventions and political undercurrents of the period, which makes me so excited to read it, and I feel like I'm going to be reading it soon because it sounds brilliant. Then I got Victoria by Knut Hamsun, and this is described as an intensely psychological book about love's predicament in a class-bound society. It's a really short one, so I'm interested to see how that affects the story. It's not one I know about. Again, I don't know how I came across this, but I was trying to desperately search out Norwegian writers and this is the one that I stumbled across. So one I think again that I'm going to be reading soon, and I'm just really excited to read books that I'm not really sure about, don't know a lot about them, but just can't wait to immerse myself in. And then the final Norwegian classic I got was The Ice Palace by Tarjei Vesaas, and I'm going to read to you from the back on this one because it sounds better than I could ever sum it up. And it says, the children call it the Ice Palace, a frozen waterfall in the Norwegian fjords, transformed into a fantastic structure of translucent walls, sparkling towers and secret chambers. It fascinates 2 young girls, Lonely Un and Liza lively sis who strike up an intense friendship. When Un decides to explore the ice palace alone and doesn't return, sis must try to cope with the loss of her friend without succumbing to a frozen world of her own making. Another short one. I'm also obsessed with this cover. It's so chilling, and again, not one I know a lot about, but I thought that it sounded amazing, and I'm so excited to explore new writers and to talk about them on my channel too. I'm always looking for new recommendations. There are so many authors I don't know that you know loads about. One of the books that was recommended to me recently was The Decameron by Giovanni Boccaccio. Now this is an Italian work, and I think it is from 1348. The book is set in 1348, and I think it was written round about that period. And coincidentally, I recently watched a video that Eric from Lonesome Reader made a while back where he talked about the Decameron and how misogynistic it was. So whilst I don't like reading misogynistic books, I'm interested to read it for myself and really analyse it and think about why it's misogynistic and what that says about literature at the time. And I also want to make a video about whether we view classics as inspirational and whether we can see them either as products of their time or we should still be taking things away from them. Then I have lots and lots of French literature. I love France, and I used to do French. I did it at GCSE and I studied so hard from it that I put myself off and put so much pressure on myself that I just couldn't do it anymore, and I've actually lost a lot of my French now. I just can't remember it, which I think is really sad and something I would like to pick up in the future. But I used to make videos on my channel in French to kind of help myself learn the language. But I kind of want to bring back that love because it was such an intense love I had for learning French, a bit like I am with Norwegian now. But I want to read some more French literature, and quite a few of you have asked, like, have you read this or have you tried reading this? So I decided to pick up some of the ones that I thought sounded brilliant. And the first one is The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. I can't wait to read this because it's such a famous book and I don't know a lot about it. Everybody knows The Three Musketeers and it's quite a big cultural reference, but I don't know too many specifics about the story, and so I think it would be great to read. It's described as a tale of friendship and adventure, and it's definitely one of France's most popular works of literature, so it's going to be great to read, and I'm hoping that this will start my love of French literature because I haven't read that much yet. Then I got Dangerous Liaisons by Chaudelot de Laclos, which I don't think I'm pronouncing right, but let's just run with that. This is described as a story of seduction where two highly intelligent but immoral French aristocrats plot the downfall of a respectable young married woman and a 15-year-old girl who has only just emerged from the convent. And this is an epistolary novel, which means that it's told in letter format, which I feel like might make it more easily digestible, which I'm a little bit worried about because I feel like the thing I'm worried about in reading works that have been translated from another language is that there are a lot of cultural references that maybe I won't pick up on. So I'm gonna ease myself into it and try and immerse myself completely in that world, that culture, and just see how it goes. I am a little bit nervous, I've got to admit, but I feel like with these things you've just got to dive into it. But I feel like this is such a famous work, just like The Three Musketeers, that there's going to be a lot of resources out there to read as I read it or after I've read it. I then got two books which are kind of connected, and the first one is Indiana by George Sand. This is about a 16-year-old girl who marries an older man, and it was written in 1831 and comments on the French marriage laws, which I'm really interested to read about, and I think it would be good to look at marriage in comparison, for example, between France and England and how the laws at the time are different or similar, and that's something I'm really excited to explore. And then the other one that is connected to this is Alfred de Musset's The Confession of a Child of the Century, which is based on his real life romance with George Sand. So I'm excited to read both of these and see how George Sand writes and also how she is written about in The Confession of a Child of the Century, and I'm kind of intrigued by this cover. It says that it tells a story of Octave, desperate to be more than an average man, who searched for happiness first as a debauched libertine until his mistress, Elise, is unfaithful, and then in an austere life in the countryside, where he falls in love with the selfless Bridget. I'm not really sure what to think about this one, but I thought it sounded quite funny. I'm not sure if it will be funny, but I feel like it was just one of those books that I saw and thought, this has piqued my interest in some way. I'm not sure why, but I want to read it now, so I'm excited to read both of these. The next books I've got to show you were very kindly sent to me by Persephone Books, who are one of my new favourite publishers, and they've also got a shop in London, which I really want to visit at some point soon, and they sent me their next 3 books that they're publishing this year, and I'm very, very excited to read them. They are absolutely gorgeous and sound amazing. And the first one is Tory Heaven, or Thunder on the Right, by Margarita Lasky. She is one of Persephone Books' most popular authors, and they publish lots and lots of her books. I've never read any of her books before, so I can't really comment on her writing style or kind of what she writes about, but I do have a book that she wrote on Jane Austen, so I really want to read this, and then hopefully I'll discover lots of her other books too. The next one is the one that I'm possibly most excited to read, and it is Despised and Rejected by Rose Alateen. This was a highly controversial book when it was published, not because of the way it talks about homosexual relationships, but because of the way it talks about the war and how it was said to promote kind of desertion and how it was said to be against the war. I think this is going to be a great one to read for my future video on same-sex relationships in classics, which is something I really, really, really want to talk about. It's something that I've been preparing for a long time, and I'm just gathering my reading list together, so you'll definitely hear me talk about this one, hopefully at some point soon, and I just think it's great that it is being published. I've never heard of it before, and that's the great thing about Persephone, is that they publish amazing books that have been forgotten, and very sadly forgotten too, for no reason at all. It definitely does not reflect on the quality of the books, but they've just been pushed aside and other books have taken over, and it's great that they are being recognised again. And then the final new Persephone book that is being published this year is Young Anne by Dorothy Whipple. This was her first published book, and I recently read her last published book, which was Someone at a Distance, which I'll be talking about in my end of the month wrap up. I really loved that, and I can't wait to read more Dorothy Whipple. I love the way that she writes about characters and how she characterises the people in her books. They feel so real. You can almost see exactly what they're going to do and how they're going to act, but you're not really sure how the story is going to pan out. And I loved her descriptive writing and how she just got everything that she was writing about, so I can't wait to read similar qualities in Young Anne. Also, if you order from Persephone online or go into their shop, you get a free bookmark, and they also have a Persephone magazine type supplement that they send out on their mailing list, which I really love receiving. It's got great reviews and really interesting articles in it, so I think they're a publisher that you definitely should support, and I love buying from them. I love how their books look. I love how you look at it and you know that it's a Persephone book, and I love them. Not sponsored, I just really, really want you to go out and buy these books. And then the final 2 books are by Charles Dickens, because I read Great Expectations and I want to read lots more Dickens this year, and these 2 are very hefty books, and the first one is Little Dorrit. I've heard very mixed reviews on this one, so I'm not sure what to expect. It's also 989 pages, which kind of does put me off. I think I'd like to read some of his earlier works and some of his shorter works first, but this is about the state and psychology of imprisonment, and like Dorothy Whipple, I love how Charles Dickens characterises the people he's writing about, whether it's a secondary character or a protagonist or an antagonist. Whoever he writes about, he brings them to life perfectly on the page, so I do trust him to be amazing, but I just don't know what to expect with Little Dorrit. And then the final book in my classics book haul is Our Mutual Friend by Charles Dickens. This was his last completed novel. He also wrote The Mystery of Edwin Drood, which I think it's called Edwin Drood something, but that was unfinished when he died, but it has still been published. Again, not really sure what to expect. This is another one of the longer ones. It's not as long as Little Dorrit, but it is compared to Little Dorrit. There are very similar themes, so I'm not sure what I'm going to read next with Charles Dickens, but I've been slowly collecting his books just so I've got them all. I've got lots of options. I think that next I'm going to read Hard Times, and I also want to read A Christmas Carol. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that at the end of the year, because I wanted to read it at the end of last year and then kept putting it off, so maybe I just need to bite the bullet and read it now. I also want to read A Tale of Two Cities, and I'd also like to read Oliver Twist, and I just want to read all of his books and I can't wait. I'm trying to pace myself with them because I don't want them all to be done, but he did write some very, very long books, and I'm not quite at the stage at the moment with classics where I love long books. I'd like to get to that point, but once I've finished college and I've finished with education, then hopefully I'll have more time to commit to longer books, but I'm not really sure how that's gonna go. So that was my classics book haul. I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you've read any of these and you'd recommend any that I should start soon, or if there are any books that I didn't include in this that you think I'd really enjoyed based on the ones I picked up. I'm particularly interested in translated classics at the moment, so let me know if you have any recommendations, and I'd also love to know which books you have acquired recently. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys soon. Happy reading!